What's good and what up? It's your brother SamAnt here at Viral Hip Hop News. Do me a favor, family, before we get started with the content. Y'all know what to do. Go up top and hit that like button. Alright, so a couple of weeks ago, the comedy world was taken by storm when Richard Pryor's former bodyguard came out with some pretty serious allegations towards Paul Mooney. We all know Paul Mooney used to be side by side with Richard Pryor, writing a lot of Richard Pryor's material as well as some of his comedy sketches. One of the greatest comedic writers of all time. He was on Dave Chappelle's comedy show for years and years. Somebody that when he always talks and drops knowledge, we always really pay attention because he's always dropping some gems no matter when he speaks. So when we heard the news or heard the allegations that Paul Mooney was being accused of, it really shook a lot of people who looked at him and admired his work. It really shook him up. Now, we talked on this podcast numerous times because I am one of those people who really am fond of Paul Mooney's work. I feel like he's a legend in the game, somebody who loves comedy, can really appreciate what this man has done for comedy. It really bothered me when you heard the allegations against him, and then it was silence on his part. We talked about it numerous times, why Paul Mooney wasn't saying anything, why anybody in his camp wasn't coming out and vehemently denying these allegations, why people in the comedy world weren't coming out and showing their support for Paul Mooney. Really kind of took me aback, really bothered me, really kind of had me raise speculation. Well, damn, is this true? Is this not true? Because if I was blamed for such a serious allegation, I know myself, camp, everybody would be coming out denying the situation. Well, Paul Mooney's sons, his twin sons, came out on the same platform that Richard Pryor's bodyguard went on and went all the way in regards to the allegations against their father. And even Paul Mooney had something to say via Twitter. Let's listen to what his sons had to say initially, and then I'll read what Paul Mooney had to say and finish my 1-2. Now, without further ado, we got Paul Mooney's twin sons going in on Comedy Hype about the allegations raised against their father. If you want the full story, it'll be in the description box. I'll play a caption right now, and I'll come back with my 1-2. Let's go.
Don't you think he would be up here talking?
Yeah.
That's Paul Mooney. Somebody said Paul Mooney hiding. Paul Mooney ain't hiding. Wait a minute. Paul Mooney's not well.
He's good. He's doing well. He's looking well. He's
ill.
He's ailing mentally. So he's
physically.
He's not what he was. He's slower.
So he's basically retired from stand-up.
Because he can't get up and do a
Don't you think he would be up here talking?
Yeah.
That's Paul Mooney. Somebody said Paul Mooney hiding. Paul Mooney ain't hiding. Wait a minute. Paul Mooney's not well. Somebody just said in Atlanta that Paul Mooney canceled his show because he was performing in Atlanta. Paul Mooney don't perform. He was coming to Atlanta because he promotes comedians, just like he did back in the day when he put Robin Williams on, when he put Tim Reed on, when he put Johnny Witherspoon on. He's always promoted comedians well enough. And the only reason he didn't go to Atlanta, Paul, he don't even know what's going on right now with all this Richard Pryor stuff. He don't need to speak on it. We speaking on it. We're his oldest sons. He's actually the oldest.
Yeah, he don't know the difference between Richard Pryor Jr. and Little Richard. So you ain't getting nothing out of Paul.
Okay. Exactly.
Okay. So don't even trip. Like somebody trying to create it. Oh, he was scared to show up. He was dehydrated and ill. He had to cancel. He had to cancel the presentation. He was in the hospital. So give me a break. If you're gonna come to us.
That's right.
He think you talking about Paul Mooney, the old actor. He don't know what y'all talking about out here.
Mm-hmm. But you guys did hear these about the allegations concerning
We're
Richard
very
Pryor
hip to the
Jr.
allegations.
We are very hip to it.
We've known Rashawn quite well.
I know
We've known Rashawn.
Okay.
Out people, give me a break. So you look at, and this is documented in Richard Pryor's Jr. book. Richard Pryor Jr. says when he was 13 years old, that his father, Richard Pryor, paid for a 26-year-old prostitute to break his virginity. In his book, this ain't no make-believe stuff. This ain't no make-up stuff.
And he also talked about picking up
when he was a teenager,
hitchhikers. Bringing them to Richard Pryor's house. This was documented.
He ain't never mentioned no Paul Mooney in that book.
Asked on TMZ about that element and about what went down, he never mentioned Paul Mooney.
That's right.
So for Rashawn to talk that shit And we've known Rashawn. To bring it up now, who's an old man himself, what the fuck was he doing? And the whole shit about he put a hit on Paul. Richard Pryor was high every goddamn day. He probably put a hit on everybody. He probably put a hit on his mama. And for Rashawn as a bodyguard to sit up there and take that and say, "Wow, I thought about it." How you gonna think about some bullshit like that?
All right, so there you have it. That was Paul Mooney's sons on a brief excerpt from their interview with Comedy Hype. They said a lot of things that stuck out to me, that caught my attention. One of the things being that Paul Mooney is not well. Now, I've been hearing this rumor for quite some time now, that Paul Mooney has been sick. The time I heard it is when a couple of months ago when I reached out to Paul Mooney's camp to get an interview with Paul Mooney, because I was dropping a couple videos that I made on Paul Mooney and a lot of people were interested to see him on our platform. I reached out to him, he reached back, I sent his sons an email, and we got no return. Was continuing to do so, and I was hearing rumblings and rumors that he's not taking any interviews right now. He's not going on any stand-up shows right now. Paul Mooney is sick. People were saying he was suffering from dementia, and you heard a number of other different ailments that he may have been having. That being said, when we heard Richard Pryor's bodyguard come out, Mr. Khan, involving these allegations, one of the main things I tried to make note of is that, yes, he is writing a book. This could be for some kind of financial gain, but we really had to hear from somebody in Paul Mooney's camp because it's just going out there and nothing's being done about it. A couple of other things they said is he is unaware of what is going on right now involving his name. Now, I don't know if I necessarily believe that. Paul Mooney dropped a tweet. I don't know if this was Paul Mooney himself now or if it was one of the people in his camp, but you guys can look up top. I'll drop that on the screen. It says, "Thank you all for messages, emails, and calls. As you know, a good laugh is the all be all. I've been checking out some very funny stuff." That sounds like just pure classic sarcastic ass Paul Mooney. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did write this. I wouldn't be surprised if he knows exactly what is going on and how his name is being thrown around right now. I do lean more toward the side of him being innocent now that I've heard his team come out, his family come out, deny these allegations, something that I was looking to at least hear, because it really struck me as something very odd that nothing came out. Now, they also said along the lines that they never seen their father involved in any homosexual activity. Anytime that they seen their father around, it was with women, whether that be their mother or not. Paul Mooney loved women. Richard Pryor also joked about Paul Mooney's sexuality, so it's been something that's been joked around for decades. I don't know if they were just kind of saving face with that. I don't know if it was genuine. I'm not sure. I don't know and think if it even matters in this situation. The only thing and the only subject that can is whether or not Paul Mooney was involved in any kind of child molestation, in particular with Richard Pryor's son. Now, what they also said is Richard Pryor Jr. has came out and hasn't said anything blaming Paul Mooney about being molested, but he also hasn't came out and said that he didn't do it. So you still have a lot of open-ended questions. You still have a lot of unanswered questions and things that we may not ever know. All we know is that Richard Pryor's bodyguard came out. He's writing a book. He made some very serious allegations against Paul Mooney. And now, unfortunately, the fact that these allegations aren't true is very unfortunate. At the fact that this brother and this man, this legend, has to spend the last bit of his life not enjoying his legacy, not enjoying his family, but have to answer questions about such a vile and disgusting act. I don't think that we will ever see Paul Mooney publicly speak about this. I'm sure, because it looks like his sons are pretty fired up, that they'll go ahead and do their media run denying these allegations. We still got a book coming out, so more is going to be said and expressed about this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more in detail. Y'all leave a comment in the comment section right now. Let me know what you think of this. Do y'all think that Paul Mooney is innocent? Do you think he's guilty? Just to give my final 1-2 on it, to let y'all know how I feel. I personally believe in my heart of hearts that he is innocent of these charges, but I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I really don't know. I don't know. It would sound way better if Richard Pryor Jr. came out and said, nah, Paul Mooney didn't do this. Right now, because he hasn't, that question is still open-ended, but I am happy to hear and get an explanation on why, one, he's not speaking, and two, getting an explanation from his camp denying all allegations. I think that's very important. I'm glad that they did it. just to represent their father in the right way. If in fact he is innocent of these charges, it had to be done. Y'all leave a comment in the comment section right now. Let me know what you think of the situation. Also in the description box, you already know. Go ahead and subscribe to the most dangerous, most underrated, most disrespected podcast out here to date, the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast from my brother Oh God. You can find that link in the description box. Make sure you subscribe to my Twitter and my Instagram. You can see that across the bar on the middle of your screen right now. I'd really appreciate it. Always trying to keep it raw, and uncut here at Viral Hip Hop News. Until next time, till next story, I sincerely appreciate each and every one of y'all. And I'm out of here, man. Peace.